Who invented the cemetery? The modern cemetery as we know it, rows of tombstones, manicured lawns, and burial rituals, is not African in origin. It's a European colonial invention, deeply rooted in religious control, class division, and spiritual disconnection. Let's use logic and critical thinking. 1. The word cemetery is Latin. Cemetery comes from the Latin word coemeterium, meaning sleeping place. But sleeping where? Under church land. In colonial Christianity, death was property. The church owned your afterlife real estate. 2 cemeteries were controlled by the church. You couldn't be buried unless you were baptized or part of the Christian system. Cemeteries were originally churchyards, used as a tool to keep spiritual control even after death. 3. Plantation for the dead. Cemeteries literally mimic plantations. Row by row, bodies are lined up like crops. Numbered plots like slave quarters. Ownership of land remains in the hands of the institution. You pay to be buried. Even in death, it's colonized land. 4. Africans didn't bury the dead. This way, indigenous African cultures honored the dead through ancestral shrines, tree burials, ritual cremation, water burials, returning the body to nature as a cycle, not confinement. The dead were never asleep. They were awakened ancestors. 5. Christianity turned ancestors into ghosts. The cemetery disconnects you from your ancestors. It teaches you to fear spirits, ghosts, and graves. But your ancestors aren't meant to be feared. They're meant to be honored. 6. Cemeteries profit from death. Let's be real. Death is a business. You pay for a plot, pay for a headstone, pay for a coffin, pay for a funeral. And then, you pay for peace in a fenced-in plantation for the dead. Who owns the land? Not your family. It's a religious institution or the state. So even when you die, they still make money off you. 7. The cemetery is a psychological spell. Cemeteries teach you to fear death. But in African spirituality, death is transformation, not the end. Colonizers gave you a fenced plot so you'd fear spirits and never connect with your ancestors. So what do you do instead? You visit a grave, not a shrine. You mourn instead of honor. You see your ancestors as gone, not present. 8. There is nothing sacred about a fence. Why do cemeteries always have gates and fences? It's psychological, just like a prison, just like a plantation. The gate is symbolic. It says, your spirit can't roam. You belong here. This is your final address. But the soul doesn't need a gate. The gate is for the living, to keep you programmed. Step 9. The headstone erases your spirit. In ancestral traditions, your memory lives through oral history, ancestral offerings, family ritual. But a headstone, that's a European invention to reduce you to a name and date. Your story is locked in stone and buried, instead of being kept alive in spirit and practice. 10. The final plantation is mental. The cemetery is not just physical, it's mental. You're told to mourn quietly. You're told not to speak to your dead. You're told not to connect or feel their presence. Why? Because if you realized your ancestors were still with you, you'd stop worshiping a God who was never yours. You'd stop fearing death. You'd stop being controlled. Final thought. Cemeteries are the final plantation. You live your life under a system of control. Then pay that same system to own your bones. If your soul is eternal, why are your remains owned by a religious system? Who profits from your death? Who told you that death needs a fenced-in yard and a tombstone? It wasn't your ancestors. It was your colonizers.